Welcome to IndieCapitol. I'm Pamela Nash, and this is Dylan Hintz, here to talk about his current project, Bite the Hand. So you are in production right now.
Actually, we finished production, and we're now in post-production.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's definitely the most interesting experience with the film, because now, you know, when you're in the process of filming it, there's that rush to get through every single day, every single shoot, every single scene, every single take, and then finally, when you're looking at it, it's reviewing it, but it's also just like taking in this idea of, okay, now what do I do with it? And it's piecing together a puzzle where you have so many pieces, and you're like, oh, fit that there, and I'll fit this there. So the post is a definitely new experience, because I don't even know what to do with it. It's like, I have a movie now. What do I do?
Are you editing, or are you just supervising the editor?
I'm editing rough cuts. I feel like it's my job to make sure that I get the story I want across, and because we initially had a 15-page script, and then we added a couple of new scenes to build up on some of the characters and add a few characters into the story, I feel like I need to make sure that I'm telling the story that I still want to tell, and that's where I got to come in, and I got to be like, okay, I've got to watch this footage over and over again until I know exactly where the story is, and then I also want to do the rough cuts so that I can make sure that I know what style we're going for, because I mean, everything's done in camera. Obviously, we're not shooting stuff on green screens. I mean, there's one green screen scene in the movie, but it's like, okay, well, when I do give it to this editor who I haven't worked with on this level before, how am I going to make sure that he knows what I am trying to convey? So, and I like editing. You know.
What can you tell us about the story?
The story is about, all right, rephrase. The story is it's a hitman genre film about a group of very sordid characters. You've got a couple of different genre hitman archetypes sort of playing against each other. You've got the young new recruit. You've got the old guard guy with the conscience that just kicked in. You've got the evil boss, you know, top of the food chain guy, and you've got the really psychotic, crazy guy. And I know that all sounds like ridiculously cliche right off the bat, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sort of a throwback film. So in the story, you do have the typical, you know, the old guy quits. He's like, I can't do this anymore. This has gone beyond what I'm capable of handling emotionally or whatever. It finally kicks in with him. And he tells his boss, I quit. And the boss is like, okay, well then I'll hire this sick guy, this really crazy, you know, guy that I got out of jail to go finish the job that you couldn't do. What ends up happening is our hero, Jack, played by Paul R. Sieber. I always get that wrong. I love you, Paul. Anyways, Sieber. It's Sieber. He quits, but in his moment of like, ooh, I've suddenly grown a conscience, he goes and he kills the replacement killer. So this starts our main story, wherein a new, young, most likely former military character, only known as Red, played by Jay Saunders, metros into town and gets hired sort of inadvertently by our top dog boss, Mr. Callahan, played by John C. Bailey. And they're all fabulously talented, and the story would definitely not work without the amount of acting that is going on in the movie. I mean, acting, not like acting, but you know, I don't know.
So we have a teaser that we can look at, so we're going to go ahead and look at that.
Cruelty has a human heart, and jealousy, a human face. Terror, the human form divine, and secrecy, the human dress. The human dress is forged iron, the human form, a fiery forge, the human face, a furnace sealed. The human heart, its hungry gorge.
I know that you do action movies. How much action, or do you have hand-to-hand fighting in this thing? Do you have knife fights, gunfights? What do you have going on?
Actually, yeah, there's a decent amount of action, but I wanted to make sure that I focused more on character and dialogue. The script was co-written by a friend of mine named Tom Murphy from college. He actually never really took a lot of film classes, but he loves writing and screenwriting, and he's got a real ear for dialogue. And I told him I want something, not to put too much of a pun on it, but crunchy. You know, I wanted this like gritty, sort of pulpish sounding dialogue to come through the characters' mouths, and that's what we have going on there. So it's a very character-driven piece, but I was also definitely looking to show off some of, if I have any, action directing skills. There was a gunfight planned for the movie, but it got cut at the last minute because we just ran out of time in a location, but we still have enough that it's going to still be a very suspenseful moment that has a bang to it, you know. But then there is an amazing, amazing fight scene, and I am so impressed with the amount of talent that our stunt choreographer and fight choreographer Dan Mascarello put into it. Dan's from the Ninjas vs. Vampires and Zombies movies. He's also been in a few other things, but that's where like everybody knows him from. He went above and beyond for our fight scene. There's a major fight scene between him and Paul, and in the movie, Paul's character Jack has come in to, you know, put forth some retribution and, you know, clear his conscience on this serial killer character. And he pretty much pops right in the door, says hello, and then the throwdown just begins. And it's going to be something really special. We have this one shot planned that I don't think has been done in a movie like this at this level in this area that I'm definitely confident enough to say is completely unique. And it involves, Dan had custom built a table for us so that Dan could get thrown through this table, over his shoulder, like through the table. So it's after that happens, the fight scene gets even more intense. There's a lot of, they beat, you know, throw blows down on each other and everything like that. They get crashed into, you know, furniture. We bought lots of breakables, and then it's got a bloody knife fight towards the end of it that, once again, like I said, it ends in a very intense bang. And I'm very happy with how it came out. It was a great full day of shooting. The guys were incredibly sweaty by the end of it, bleeding through the clothes with the, you know, we're going to have to fix a lot of stuff in post with that. But yeah, action.
How do you get your actors to not only learn how to do this stuff, but how to do it safely?
Well, that's all actually on Dan. I'm very familiar with fight scenes and martial arts. I've done my fair share of both, and but as soon as I started talking with Dan about the scene, and I had originally wanted to like choreograph the entire thing and like, you know, be in charge of it and everything like that, I realized, no, I'm going to let him take over most of it, because this guy has experience, and this guy always wants to make it safe. And the number one thing is he always wants to make the other actor comfortable. And from everybody that I've talked to that's worked with him, he has gone. They've all said, Dan makes me feel like I can really do this. You know. Now there were a couple of times during the fight scene where Paul, who's an incredible actor and really machismo and gifted and great in this movie, you know, he might not have been able to like do all the crazy combinations that came through my head, because, you know, I come up with all sorts of nice stuff, and it was just like, how can I make Paul still sell his, you know, BA machismo with less moves? And Dan and I, we would just be like, you can just do that much and you're going to look good because you can sell it. You're great. So that's what it just came down to. It was like, you find your actors, you tell them what you'd like to see, they tell you what they think they can do, you go, I think you can do this much, but do split the difference, show us what you can do, and do it as hard as you can. And that'll sell the realism of the fight. And I'm very safe to say, you know, this is a very real and very brutal fight.
Do you have any issues with, like, I'm playing a tough guy, I have to be tough, but I'm really actually afraid I'm going to get my head busted open, like?
Myself or my other actors?
For the actors, like, do you have to talk them through that initial period of, like, you're not going to die on my film?
Well, not in this movie because it was such a small cast, although there is another fight scene out in the streets where we had 3 very gifted other actors tussle with Jay. An early scene that we filmed in Silver Spring. That's kind of like the prologue to the film. The three actors were Dominique Spencer, Delano Walters, and our makeup artist actually pinching it in, Kwame Head. And they were supposed to come in and intimidate Jay, and I wasn't sure what their fighting backgrounds were. I knew they were willing to do anything because they really were excited about this movie, and they had helped promote it and everything on Facebook, and I couldn't thank them more for that. But you know, Jay wanted to incorporate his Krav Maga that he had been learning, which he's getting sufficiently good at. Like, he's a monster in front of the camera with this stuff. And I was like, yes, I want to see that. I want to see some real vicious stuff. And we had some really intense moves in this fight scene. Like, we were talking like groin strikes, pops to the head, knocking people over in the streets, no pads, no real preparation, really. It was all kind of impromptu. It was very guerrilla. But, you know, it's the same thing. You ask your actor, what do you think you're capable of? What do you want to do? And how can we make you feel safe? What are you not willing to do? And a lot of the times in this area, because the actors in the DC area are so dedicated, they'll do anything. Just, you know, make sure you don't put too much on their plate. Don't kill your actors. That's going to ruin your reputation. I guarantee it. You know, if an actor dies on your set.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So I know you personally have worked as a stuntman before. Like, how does one train to become a stuntman?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I got very lucky 2 years ago. I got a gig at Six Flags America. And this happened because while I was at Salisbury University, there was a job fair. And Six Flags had come to the job fair looking for marketing majors and people to, you know, help with publicity and help in the marketing department. And I went up to the table and I was just like, hey guys, I know you're looking for like marketing majors and people that are like smart. I just want to get punched in the face. How do I join the stunt team? So they give me a number and I call their entertainment department and I go and I audition, and I guess I did okay on the audition, but I could not take it because I was still in school and they needed to start their seasonal training in March, May, something like that in between, and I was unavailable. Cut to a couple of months later, two of their people bottom out. One of them like breaks his legs doing a stunt, and one of them is unable to pass his drug test. And they call me up and they're like, would you like to come in? And I'm like, yes, this is the ultimate summer job. I go to a theme park and I fall off buildings for a living. So for 3 months, I worked as a stunt performer at Six Flags America. I trained under a great stunt professional, Jason Cabrera. I think he still works there, actually. And I learned how to do stage combat, mid-falls. I almost got to high falls, but you know, it was a long season. Basically, I could, at the end of the day, go up to somebody and say, hey, my job this summer has been jumping away from explosions. What do you do? Work at a Dairy Queen?
So there's got to be people in DC that want to have stunt training. Is there any places to get training, or do you give training, or how do they do it?
I am certainly not certified to train anybody. I will say that right into the camera. I am not a certified stunt professional or trainer. I am kind of an amateur, but I want to learn. And everybody out there should want to learn. You always want to learn with this, because this is the number one thing is safety. The number two thing is insanity. So first I'm safe, and then I'm insane. Once I know it's safe, then I need to be insane. And I haven't been able to find a specific place to train. I mean, there's people around. You can work with Dan. You can work with another guy that works on Ninja vs. Vampires, PJ McGaw. You get to know these people. You work together. You put in groups together. But what I decided to do recently, actually, and I think this is a first for this area as well, is we're all really well known around here in the DC area for having these great Facebook groups with lots of people. You know, ever since Brian Dragonuck created like this big community, now there's like DC, Maryland film actors and everything like that. I got tired of knowing all these stunt people, and I got tired of knowing all these great martial artists and all these great fight performers, and none of them knowing each other. And rather than being like the only go-between and sort of like stealing all the glory for networking this stuff, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make a Facebook group for this, and I'm going to put every single person I know that is willing to throw a punch in frame and take one. Real people that really, they're the stunt people, they're the crazy people. Actors are crazy people, but not all actors like to get kicked in the face. It's their moneymaker. So I created this group, and we now have, I think, 42 members in this group. And almost every single one of these guys has done some sort of fight choreography performance or some sort of stunt performance. And there's a lot of really great people, including this guy up in Baltimore named Jeff Wilhelm, who is, I've actually never met him, but he's worked on stuff. I think one of them is like this recent thing that was done up in Baltimore called like One-Eyed horse or something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but it had a lot of really great stunt gags. Like they were doing like pulling the rope to pull people through windows and stuff like that, shotgun blasts and falling off buildings. And hopefully everybody will get together at some point and we'll do like this big barbecue seminar. It's going to be a little bit cold out soon, but you know, that's more padding when you wear a jacket.
That's kind of a great idea. So there are 42 available stunt people in the DC area, so maybe we'll see a spike in adding some of that stuff to our films.
I hope so, because I mean that's a big thing to sell. You know, not every movie has to be an action movie, but almost every movie, whether it's a comedy or a horror or, you know, even a drama, there's going to be a stunt at some point where somebody not necessarily gets hit by a bus, but you know, they got to run through traffic or they got to like fall down the stairs, or you know, you need someone there to catch your safety. You need someone there to make sure to try it out first, or at least you know, check it out first. And I think that's hopefully something that our group will incorporate more into the local area.
And that's one of the things that we talk a lot about on this show is like how to build up the DC film community, who's doing what. And we talk a lot about swapping out, I'll work on your project, you work on my project. Something like stunts, you really have to leave the area to get training or certification.
Yeah.
So what's the incentive to come back?
To this area? Just that the people you work with are wonderful. I mean, everybody in this area has probably had a couple of sets where they've gone, I'm not sure if I would work with that person again, you know, and but then everybody in this area has also had, this guy was great, and he's so passionate, and you know, or she is so passionate, anybody, this director, this producer, this, you know, this really creative person, they come up with great stories, and everybody around here is just, the passion is insane. So when people want to do fight scenes around here, people want to do stunts around here, they want to challenge themselves to make what we're doing out here look as good as what people are doing up in New York and what people are doing out in California. And it's going to be hard to do. I mean, you got to build the infrastructure. But I think that's what's open here, and I think that's what's available here, is that you have a chance to be a part of this growing infrastructure. And that's unique here because it's already a lot bigger than any other like small town anywhere. It's still not Los Angeles, but we're rising, and we're getting there. And we have film festivals, and we have people, and we have professionals, and we don't have like a ton of SAG actors yet, but we don't necessarily have to. Everybody's dedicated.
Oh, I agree with that. And community building is something that you kind of are very good at. This is not the first community that you've ever established.
No, you've done your research. I guess you're referring to my film club at Salisbury University? Yeah. Back when I was at Salisbury University in 2006, I'm going to say. 2005 is when I started going. You probably know this better than I do at this point. My brain's frazzled from the last 8 months of work. 2005, I went to school. By the end of my first semester, I was bored out of my mind, because it was Salisbury. And there's nothing to do there but drink and party and drink and play video games, and then drink and party and play video games. And then you mix up that order a little bit. And I had gotten a camera as my graduation present. I should have gotten a laptop, but I got a camera, and I wanted to make movies. So I tried appealing to the nerd club there, StarNet, I think is what it was called, and they were like, no, we want to drink and play video games. I was like, what am I going to do? So next semester, I grabbed 3 friends of mine that I had started getting close to, and we were like, okay, we're going to start a club. We're just going to start a club, film club, try and make movies. We've been doing it for a couple of semesters now. We should see what happens. And I'd already had a couple of little mini DV backyard movies under my belt. And we did. We started, and it started really slow. The first 3 semesters, we were barely able to get over 10 members. But by about a year and a half into it, we started really growing. We grabbed these new freshmen who just wanted to be creative and wanted to just help out. And some of them didn't even want to be on film, but they wanted to be at the meetings. They just wanted to hang out and help. And we made 3 or 4 really good short films, I think, while we were there. And we also made a feature that has still not yet been released. But by the end of my run there, we had meetings with nearly 40 people in attendance, and on average it ended up being around 20 people per meeting. And in a small school like Salisbury, where all people want to really do is drink and party and drink, that's a big deal for a club to be that that big and supportive. So we ended up being one of the top 25 clubs while I was president at the university, and we helped out with community service projects, and we made some really great work, I think. You know, it was simple, but it was good. It was good stuff.
And you've got kind of a lot of work behind you for a guy your age. Are you 30-something shorts already?
Yeah, I've made around 30 short films, some small documentaries. I mean, none of it's like super professional. All of it was really shot with one camera, with no external microphone. I had this great camera that I had gotten that just had a great mic on it, and I just loved playing around in post and doing whatever I could and learning and learning and learning, because that's all you can ever do. And so yeah, I've made about 30 short films, some wacky humor, some kind of dark thriller sort of things. One video game adaptation that I entered onto a website competition that was partially done with the Future Filmmakers Club. And a couple of music videos, but yeah, just experiment. Figure out where your style lies and decide what kind of stories you want to tell. And by the time we got to Bite the Hand, it was like, I want to tell genre stories, but I also want them to be like old westerns or old martial arts films or old samurai films, you know, things that are about characters with moral dilemmas. Because to me, that's probably the most appealing kind of story you can tell, is the moral dilemma story. It's like, it's the kind of thing that other people will watch and they'll go, what would I do in this situation? How would I react? And then following that character's arc, they also gain catharsis. And that's important to me.
Let me ask you about Max Action. Is that a he or a who or a what?
It's a mix of all three, I guess. Max Action is a stock character I actually created while at Salisbury University with the Future Filmmakers Club. Max is basically the broadest appeal character I could come up with. And I was really, really surprised when I came up with the name Max Action that the character had never been done before. I think if you Google search the name Max Action, you come up with me and this one urban explorer guy, and that's it, which is incredibly surprising that there's not like some Marvel Comics superhero, you know, named that. We came up with it as a motivational speaker character who would physically and violently beat and harass students until they stopped procrastinating. And it was all in good fun and good spirits, but for some reason it caught on. And we made one video, and we kind of made like a second video, and then just kind of petered out for a while, and I was just like, I don't need to do this guy ever again. And then cut to about a year and a half ago, I think, I just started messing around with the character again and just trying to make small videos, and I actually took him out to Club Orpheus up in Baltimore and just offered to like MC and yell at guests and stuff like that, yell at the club goers, and it took off for quite a while. I got involved with the monthly club night called Encode, and Max would just walk around the club and just, you know, motivate the party, and, you know, the dubstep would occur, and he'd just start dancing on the dance floor. I don't know what's wrong with that guy. He's crazy. And he would help judge the video game competitions.
10 HUD troops, Max Action reporting in for November's Encode event. This month, we're going out of this world to experience some intense space combat. Beat me up, Zimmy! Die, you alien scum! Max Action! I'm here to make you a man of action!
He's finally been cross-promoted with another great group of filmmakers up in Columbia, Maryland, called Apsis Motion Pictures, which is headed by Joel Locus and Tier Rollins. And they put Max in their show called The Bridge, which is a web series that they originally created as like an experimental special effects practice run and fight scene choreography test series that has expanded its narrative and has had pretty good reception among, you know, people that enjoy those kind of wacky fight videos. And that was probably one of my favorite projects I ever got to work on, because I co-choreographed with Tier, and it was just this wild fight scene that is mostly stunt-based. It kind of looks like a wrestling match with a lack of martial arts, but with a lot of pow, you know, and a lot of comedic edge to it. And hopefully everybody goes on the internet and checks out The Bridge web series. There's a Facebook page for it, and we're trying to build up a big fan membership for that, because I'm hopefully going to be working with those guys on future web series as well. You know, they're very talented.
So you're almost impossible to kind of put into a box, because you've done acting, choreography. you've done stunts, you've done writing, you've done community building, you've done modeling. I mean, how do you define your career path, and are you just going to keep doing it all, or are you going to narrow it down?
That's a really good question, because that's kind of the thing that I try and ask myself a lot of times. Personally, what I've been doing for like about the last year or so, it's been almost exactly a year since I got into acting. I did my first, I mean, aside from Six Flags, when I got out of college, I had a temp job and I saved up some money, and then I did my first independent film, which we're not sure what's happening with it. You know, it's one of those, it's like the guy shot it, but will it ever come out? And I was a lead in my first project that I auditioned for, and then I did a couple of other small web series for some other people up in Baltimore and then some other places, and the momentum just kept carrying, and I kept applying to these Craigslist things and these Dragoneck things, and I actually did some professional things. I was on a Sirens Media program called Nightmare Next Door. That was my first TV appearance. Where,
I saw you on that.
Did you
actually,
see that?
Yes, I did.
My favorite way to describe my episode of Nightmares Next Door is that I look at a friend and I go, I was this guy on the show. He might have killed her. And that is the greatest thing ever, because my mom tried not to crack up, and my girlfriend and my brother were sitting there. They just like exploded. They were like, oh my God, that's so you. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I've fortunately gotten to do another program with them for a Lifetime show that'll hopefully come out soon, and I've been an extra. So I was an extra on the Clint Eastwood movie, and you know that was the most awesome experience of all time, was just meeting Clint Eastwood and seeing him and having him say, hey, great work. It was like, I don't know if you even know that you're talking to me, but I'm going to take it as Clint Eastwood told me I'm doing a good job walking around in stylish 30s outfit, you know, and J. Edgar is going to be amazing. Like, you know, anything he does is amazing, but what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. Well, like I was just describing, I went out and I did everything. I was like, is there a job out there? Can I do it? I'll go do it. You know, I've got the time. I need to explore if I have any talent, do I have any talent, what I need to work on. I was a leaf on the wind, to quote the crazy nerd genre fan base. But it was great. It was great because I got to really experiment with different kinds of characters and different types of roles. I was in this independent sci-fi film for this guy who was making a movie in his basement, and you know, he says he's sending it out to Sundance. Hopefully it got in yesterday. I hope so. It's going to be really cool. Rochelle was in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Wombs. You probably heard from her or somebody or something about it.
We have a filmmaking friend in common,
Yeah.
Rochelle Simeone. She
Yeah.
lives in Fredericksburg.
Gosh, it's so far away. That was a great show. What's happening? Is that ever coming out?
We were also in a web series together, and you'll have to catch up with us next episode of IndieCapitol, maybe, to find out about that. But
Maybe.
look at Dylan's like, no, we're not going there.
I'm
But-
excited to hear about it.
But for now, this has been IndieCapitol with Dylan Hintz, and I'm Pamela Nash.